Hey, good morning. I put my Liberty Nickel video on hold because my friend Dan at the awesome channel Dan Talks Sense has been influencing the topics I want to explore, and I want to share with you the items in my collection that I think his subscribers would also enjoy seeing. And so let's talk today on the history of money about the different types of imitative exonumia, the metal discs that are coin-like and imitate official coin designs, but were not issued by a government for use as an official currency or legal tender. I'm your friend Tom, a lifelong casual numismatist, and I also earned a bachelor's degree in music history. And while I'm going to be defining terms for the various types of these collectible metal discs, I will ultimately be honing in on my collection of reproductions, or coin replicas, and why we should distinguish them from counterfeits as serious collectibles. First, let's get the three most common types of imitative exonumia out of the way: rounds, metals, and tokens. First up are metals, where a public or private mint has issued a design that imitates a popular coin to commemorate a special person or event. Recently, the US Mint produced silver and gold medals in 2024 to commemorate the 130th anniversary of the first silver dollar struck in 1794. I bought the silver one, but I didn't like its weird matte finish. And so instead of returning it to the mint, I sold it while the market was hot for a 33% profit. So because unfortunately I don't have an example to compare today, I'll show you some pictures I took while I had it, alongside a photo of the original. It was exciting to order straight from the mint, and it had fancy packaging, but that 2024 tribute just didn't capture the same experience of the 1794. Now, my examples here include these first spouse medals for presidents who were unmarried while in office. Here is the Lady Liberty for Andrew Jackson, along with my cap bust half. His wife of 34 years, Rachel Jackson, died suddenly on December 22, 1828, just weeks after he had won the 1828 election, but months before his March 4, 1829 inauguration. I think it's odd not to honor her, but I guess she wasn't officially one of our first ladies. So as a result, we got this lovely bronze creation of the capped bust Liberty design. And here is Jackson's 1829 inaugural medal. The mint made one of these for commemorating every president's entry into office. But before Jackson left Nashville for the Oval Office, the spouse medal for Thomas Jefferson borrowed the draped bust Liberty design, like my 1803 half cent, which is wild to think about, that it was minted in Philly while Jefferson was in office. Related to that one is his official inaugural medal. I have the small version here, which incidentally is the same design as the Lewis and Clark Friendship Medal, presented to tribal chiefs on their journey to the Pacific Ocean. Dan Talks Sense recently published a great video about the large version of this medal, and you should definitely check that one out. And then one of my favorite Jefferson nickel designs is this 2003 Westward Journey commemorative, where the opposite happened. A coin borrowed a design from a medal to commemorate the event when that medal was made. Finally, these two are I Was There medals, purchased as souvenirs at the Fort McHenry National Monument and Historic Shrine, commemorating the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner during the fort's successful defense against a British bombardment during the Battle of Baltimore on September 13th to 14th, 1814. For comparison, here is my 1814 large cent, which I chose because it was made that same year. And this is my Betsy Ross attempt to sew my own Star-Spangled Banner replica. I fell in love with composer Francis Scott Key's story when I visited the Smithsonian, and I had the opportunity around 12 years ago to visit Fort McHenry and see the place where our national anthem was inspired and penned. Now that's a whole separate story about our little piece of the Napoleonic Wars that we call the War of 1812. It was the first big test of our fledgling adolescent nation. But the Star-Spangled Banner proved through the night that our flag was still there, and I highly recommend that you go and visit our only official national shrine. So those are imitative medals, a commemorative work of art that looks like a coin design. Rounds, like these, are more coin-like because they've been marked with a specific weight and purity of composition, and usually incorporate some security features from the precious metal coins of the past, like reeded edges. For the sake of this discussion, I'm specifically referring to rounds with a design that mimics an official coin on one or both sides. While they have a weight and purity stamped on them, they do not have an official denomination. This one imitates the reverse of the flowing hair dollar. Now, U.S. Mint bullion coins like the American Silver Eagle are round adjacent, bridging the precious metal bullion gap between rounds and coins, and they use the Liberty Walking design from the half dollar design of 1916 to 1947. You can see the similarity. Another major source of exonumia is tokens. Tokens serve as pragmatic intermediaries in commerce, stepping in where official coinage falls short of local demands. These private or semi-official metal discs, vouchers, or even wooden proxies always carry a denomination declaring their exchange value, but they almost never have precious metal content to give them intrinsic value. Now, historically, people made tokens during hard times or in remote places where sovereign coinage became scarce to enable fluid trade. By bridging gaps in supply, ensuring redeemability at issuers' establishments, and fostering trust in controlled environments, tokens are born out of human ingenuity as essential supplements to the supply of sovereign coinage. Examples include American colonial tokens like this New Jersey replica, struck before the U.S. Mint was established in 1792, and these half-penny Conder tokens from the 1790s made when Britain's copper shortages stopped Royal Mint production in 1775. And Canadian half-penny tokens, like this one from the Bank of Montreal, addressed urban shortages in Lower Canada, it's now Quebec, in the 1840s. Also, company store Scrip, like this one made for the Shoemaker Mercantile Company in Kansas around 1914, is a prolific source of old tokens. Brent Underwood, the owner of the Cerro ghost town, does a great job succinctly explaining the history of company Scrip.
So Scrip, or this company money, is basically credit that employers would extend to their workers. This type of currency was very popular in mining camps, in logging towns, and places like Kentucky, North Dakota, things like that, where access to regular stores, housing, and all that is very difficult and it's very far away. So what these companies would do is they would basically set up the whole town. And in those places, the company owns, the main operation, whether that's logging or mining. They own the housing, they own the general store, which I'm sitting in right now. And so because they own everything, they basically can just keep a tab for all the workers. And the Scrip originally came up as almost like a payday advance. So imagine that you're getting paid, $4 a day or whatever, and you're like, hey, I need, an extra $10 this week for groceries. Company's like, sure, take these tokens in lieu of that, we'll mark it down, and you'll be good. But what happened was these workers would never catch up. They'd never be able to repay their debt. And so the Scrip would almost turn into the currency for the town. And that really gets into trouble because when you want to leave the town, you want to exchange this token basically for US currency, nobody in town is going to do it for a one-to-one. And so all of the money in town would just stay in town. And because of that, the company basically had a monopoly. What are you going to do? Walk the 40 miles to their town to buy your groceries? And so no one really got rich, except for the company. It was a way for the company to control everything, to keep things in town, to basically create a monopoly. And so Scrip is really a form of debt bondage. It's very predatory, but it was outlawed in 1938 in the United States. At the same time, cars were becoming more predominant, and so workers could travel a little further than the company town to get their supplies. But finding this coin was really important. It was a piece of history. It shed a different light on the town than I think I had before.
This 1789 Druid halfpenny is an interesting example struck by the private Soho Mint for the Perry's Mining Company in Anglesey, Wales, using their own copper ore to pay their workers. As Dan has discussed several times on his channel, his Scrip pennies and this halfpenny token have a Druid's head on the obverse and the company's monogram on the reverse. But thanks to its intrinsic copper value, they served as good circulating money beyond those remote Welsh mining communities. Now, poker chips and wooden nickels also fit into the token category. Vendors of goods and services meet the need for a medium of exchange in controlled environments with tokens, vouchers, or even modern-day gift cards. Here's a wooden nickel good for one movie admission. Subway and municipal railway tokens like this one from Seattle simplified onboarding of patrons because they were good for one fare, regardless of how much the cost of a ride fluctuated. From the 1970s to 2000s, vending machine businesses revived tokens briefly to meet the needs of their coin-operated machines, where they controlled the supply and quantity of their metal discs to facilitate unattended use and improve service life by removing worn or dirty coins and counterfeits from the mix. I have a few examples here minted for use in self-service car washes, public toilets, video arcades, and the one-armed bandits of casinos. They all but disappeared by 2010 as cashless payment systems took over. These systems faced skepticism in the US for years due to fears of fraud by bogus machines, high retrofit costs, and reluctance for small transactions long after Europe widely adopted secure chip and PIN card readers starting in the 1990s. By the mid-2000s, though, US operators began installing credit and debit card readers like those using EMV chip technology en masse, driven by consumer demand for convenience. Only this year, in Rome's central train station, I first saw a pay toilet that only accepts cashless payments, and as an American, that felt very strange. Vending machine tokens may seem recent, but they are now a closed chapter in history, and will be fun collectibles for generations to come. If you're intrigued by this intersection of technology and tokenry, please check out my deep dive video on Atari arcade machines and the tokens minted to support their vertical integration with the Chuck E. Cheese franchise. Now, let's turn to a grayer area of Exonumia, faithful reproductions of genuine coins, and I advocate for making a distinction between counterfeits and replicas. First, let's identify what a counterfeit is. If you have a coin-like metal disc minted privately with the intent to deceive either a vendor or a vending machine in a business transaction, you have a counterfeit. It has the hallmarks needed to pass the required levels of security and facilitates a level of confidence game to fool the receiver into accepting it as genuine. Now, there have been contemporary counterfeits going back to Greek times, forgeries made during a coin's original circulation era to pass as legitimate payment and enter it into circulation. The most basic and crude counterfeits are cast copies from inferior metals that are married together with a seam along the edge. Electrotypes are more sophisticated with excellent detail, but the edge seam will usually give them away too. Then there are altered or doctored coins, genuine pieces modified post-mint, such as changing a date or a mint mark to mimic a rarer variety, which is meant to deceive even savvy collectors if the work is skilled. And finally, going into the depths of the truly despicable are those who make high-quality counterfeits of coins using transfer dies, where a genuine coin is sacrificed to make a fake working die, as if the coin were a working hub. An experienced collector would not likely be fooled, because any defects the original had are unavoidably copied as well. No two coins will contain identical contact marks in the same spots. But remember, a counterfeit only has to pass as genuine once. Those unfortunate victims who jump into a deal too good to be true continue to make this practice profitable. Now here is a modern counterfeit that I found in a friend's inheritance, and I kept it. It looks pretty good from a distance, however, under scrutiny, it fails certain tests. This is a rare earth magnet specifically designed to test coins. If I support it at its center of gravity, it stays level, but any magnetic attraction will cause it to tip. The published weight for this coin is right around 27 grams, and this one weighs 22.7 grams. Finally, the details are mushy under close magnification. Normally, this mint mark in the middle point of the trident would be crisp and clear, a B for Bombay, or C for Calcutta. This is definitely a counterfeit.
You're despicable.
Authentication and grading services are available to determine if a piece is genuine, but the best way to avoid buying or receiving counterfeit numismatic collectibles is to educate yourself. This is one of the many great books out there to help educate the public. But then after the book learning, go out to shows or local coin shops and handle and scrutinize lots and lots of real coins so that you recognize the real thing when you see it. When I see a counterfeit, I often can't point to specific failed diagnostics. It's more like my spidey sense starts tingling. Something just feels wrong. After handling hundreds of Morgan dollars over the years, I can pick a fake out of the crowd within seconds. So learn die characteristics, the shapes of mint marks, the styles of digits, and understand how the US Mint has always used its meticulous workmanship to produce its high-quality final products. So now, as a breath of fresh air, we get to true replicas.
Hello, I'm Ron Landis. Welcome to my studio.
Ron was widely celebrated for reviving traditional hand engraving techniques and bringing early American coinage to life through historically accurate reproductions. His techniques were a masterclass in historical fidelity, rooted in exhaustive research and a deliberate rejection of modern shortcuts to summon the tactile authenticity of 18th and 19th century minting. Landis approached die creation as a true sculptor, painstakingly hand-sinking punches into hardened steel blanks, often working from historical tracings, descriptions, or even phone consultations with experts like US Mint engraver James Farrell, rather than casting directly from originals. This labor-intensive process, which could take weeks per die, captured the subtle imperfections and flowing lines of early American designs, like the general curls of Liberty's hair on this replica, imparting vitality that modern techniques fail to capture. The planchets, too, were bespoke recreations, rolled from period-correct alloys, like pure copper for chain cents or sterling silver for dollars, on hand-cranked mills to match original compositions and weights, then annealed and cut to exact diameters without the automated precision that yield our modern perfect circles. Striking occurred on human or steam-powered screw presses, which were replicas of original machines that Joe Rust engineered from antique blueprints. They struck coins without closed collars to allow natural metal flow, resulting in off-center strikes, irregular borders, and the feel of early coins. The edges were another signature. GMM built their own reading mills or lettered edge devices from scratch, applying the original legends like 100 for $1, often finishing pieces one at a time for that artisanal authenticity.
Fine. There's got to be like a guild or a living history museum that makes coins the old way, like they have glass blowing guilds, like they have blacksmiths have them. There's a printers guild, I think. There's a paper makers guild. There's got to be something. Coins are so important. There's got to be something that kind of preserves all this stuff. And I found nothing. So I figured out later that, well, geez, this is my job. I'm the one with the interest in this. In the interest to preserve it all, it should be my duty or job to try to do this. Put together a museum, a living history type of museum, to keep these old methods alive. So, for once, we could practice them so we could learn about it. There's nothing that there's no solid thing. Making coins was like a state secret. And so they didn't put how-to books on it. They didn't have videos on how to do it. We're guessing a lot of times. We see illustrations, they're not complete. They don't give full descriptions of the whole process. They intentionally leave some things out because they don't want to teach people how to counterfeit their coins. It's a security issue. So I thought, well, times have changed. We want to learn more about process and the development of technology and so forth. So but to do that, we want to understand what we see on these old coins too. How did this happen? Things like errors, anomalies you see in dies, etc. So the best way to do this is to replicate the processes, and by working with it, you gain a deep understanding of how this stuff works.
Ron Landis was not trying to perfectly imitate the coins he replicated, but was carving his own take on what our coins would look like if he was an engraver at the Mint back in the 1790s. And that's what this is. A copper replica by his Gallery Mint Museum of a very rare 1794 dollar pattern known as Judd 18. In the Gallery Mint Museum newsletter from February 2001, they announced on the front page that their 1794 flowing hair dollar reproductions were available in silver for $38 each. But then on the back page, they wrote this. Shortly after announcing our plan to reproduce the 1794 flowing hair dollar, numerous collectors requested that we also reproduce the extremely rare copper pattern of the 1794 dollar with no stars. We will be offering a limited edition of 794 pieces on a first-come, first-served basis at $28 each. Like the original, it will be mated with the same reverse die used in regular production. The head on the pattern is slightly different than the one on the production coin. Some references describe Miss Liberty as having rosy apple cheeks and slightly different hair details. It is the opinion of our engraver that this die actually served as the master die from which the main device punch was created. All later flowing hair dollar dies were produced from this punch, which was retouched in the positive, thus accounting for the subtle differences. I had no idea that it was a limited edition piece at the time I bought it, but it is, in my opinion, superior to the US Mint's 2024 flowing hair metal. And none of these replicas were attempting to be passed off as the real coin, because all GMM issues have the word copy stamped on them in an inconspicuous place. I especially like how they kept the beautiful fields intact, so that the copy stamp is much less disruptive to the naked eye. But the artistry is all there in a way that is absent from all the Mint's latest retreads, especially the 2021 Morgan and Peace dollars. By the way, this special offering had sold out within a week. Landis and Rust homed their methods over decades and preserved the sweat equity of minting during the era of the Founding Fathers, educating collectors on how scarcity and ingenuity shaped our earliest monetary icons. GMM closed in 2012, and Landis's gallery work remains the pinnacle, hand-engraved replicas that feel like the sunken treasure gold found in shipwrecks, windows back to 1794. With his passing on June 17, 2025 at 71, these beautiful replicas stand as his enduring legacy, tributes to a craft the US Mint's enormous modern productions increasingly try to match, but rarely recapture. But it is important to note the reason for owning a replica. You want to enjoy the artistry without the worry of handling it. Ron Landis's achievements with the Gallery Mint Museum are now a part of American history, which I believe will come to be more and more respected in the years to come. Again, these replicas were not meant to deceive, but to educate. Those former colonists had many needs to fill with only limited means, but they also had great aspirations to make coinage that matched their lofty principles. No doubt it is wonderful to own originals, but they do come with their own baggage. They're so valuable, a lot of people who would like to own them cannot. Or if you own them, you don't want to risk taking them away from the safety of the deposit box, or otherwise devaluing them through mishandling. And this copper die trial is unique. In April 2021, it sold at auction for $840,000. For a fraction of the cost, now I can personally experience a coin of nearly unsurpassed numismatic and historical significance. Before we finish, let's revisit the owner of silver mining town of Cerro Gordo, Brent Underwood, who has an awesome YouTube channel that I watch whenever he uploads a video. In the video I excerpted earlier, he talks about the process he went through to mint silver replicas of the original company store Scrip token that he found on site.
Hello there! Right now, I am 500 feet underground in Cerro Gordo's Union Mine. And this mineral you see behind me is galena, which is a silver and lead ore. And this is a pure silver coin that they used to use in the mine here. And in this video, we're gonna go from this raw ore all the way down to this pure coin using the same methods that they used back in the 1800s.
What an incredible experience. You need to watch that video next. That replica has just as much provenance as the original, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to own one of those that he minted someday. So I recommend that you give replicas a shot. Maybe you'll fall in love with coins in a way that you haven't before. I look forward to hearing your opinions and stories in the comments section. Until next time, it's in God we trust.